digital projections, that's just television in public. And apparently the whole world is okay with television in public, but what I knew as cinema is dead.
Is cinema really dead? This essay is not about digital versus film, Netflix versus the theaters. This is to the naysayers who say some intangible form of cinema is being lost in today's constant flood of media. Where's the Pulp Fictions and Taxi Drivers? Where's the girl in the red coat lost in the sea of black and white when all I see is a man in tights as the symbol for cinema until 2020? Is cinema dead or is it just different?
L'exploiteur ne raconte jamais à l'exploité comment il l'exploite. Donc nous, dans ce raconte, nous qui sommes précisément l'information, le cinéma, la télévision, la presse, nous qui sommes dans ce discours de l'exploiteur qui raconte à l'exploité. Parce que c'est ça le cinéma, les romans, la presse, la télé, c'est raconter. Nous qui sommes là-dedans, nous devons précisément raconter d'une autre manière, pour à la fin raconter autre chose.
In 1948, 4 years after Europe's World War II came to an end, Alexandre Istrouck printed an article heralding a new form of cinema to replace the everyday film that year in and year out showed their tired and conventional faces to the world. 10 years later, Jean-Luc Godard called the producer Beauregard's film a piece of shit to his face, and Beauregard went out to produce Breathless, Jean-Luc Godard's film that went on to define the French New Wave. Truffaut, Godard, Chabrol, Rivière, these directors were committed to a new form of cinema to do away with, as Truffaut called it, the roly-poly old cockled whose misadventures are supposed to prompt sympathy. Now, the French wave inspired the Americans, and that's why we have Tarantino, Scorsese, and Spielberg. But now these directors tell us that film as we know it is dying? While they see an ocean, I see a new wave off into the distance.
Alright, so here we are in front of the elephants. And the cool thing about these guys is that they have really long fronts, and that's cool. And that's pretty much all there is to say.
I know, let me explain. That was Jawed Karim in the first YouTube video ever posted entitled Me at the Zoo back in 2005. In Carol Vernelli's The Unruly Media, she talks of a YouTubification, in which all media from post-classical cinema to music videos and commercials start to resemble or refer to YouTube. I claim that modern directors will be pointing towards YouTube as their inspiration, as they knew Hollywood back in the 60s pointed towards the French New Wave, as the classic cinema begins to crumble. Now, I'm not saying that at one point in the near future, college students will be pointing to 400 blows with the same intensity as they do a cat playing piano. But there are three overarching themes that seem to apply to both the 60s and the YouTube generation that prove some sort of renaissance in cinema today. One, fuck the system. Now, both the 1960s and modern times are very much influenced by the music of the day. Rock and roll with its live fast and die hard mentality and
when I wake up, I recognize you looking at me for the pay cut. Bahamas, I be looking at you for
the 2010s pointing its finger at social injustices seen every day, hence Kendrick Lamar. But in both instances, the music is overwhelmed with a dissatisfaction for the way the system was currently run. Most YouTubers didn't even finish college or went to film school. Likewise, the French New Wave artists didn't go to the acclaimed IDHEC, the French film school at the time. In fact, most artists were proud of the fact they were independent. While students were struggling to get through their gen eds, both the French New Wave and YouTubers were alive in a time where film equipment and production was the cheapest it had ever been. Now, World War II encouraged cameras to be more durable, longer lasting, and of course cheap, while the digital age led to an escalation of technology that had never been seen before. Lola Montis, a French studio film from the 1950s, cost a grand total of $2 million, while Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, his first feature film, cost a smacking $90,000. 50 years later, a Marvel movie can cost upwards of $200 million, while Tangerine, a movie completely shot on an iPhone, cost $100,000. Studio cameras of the late 1950s cost upwards of millions of dollars just to rent, but the Camflex, released in 1947, allowed for the young director to buy a camera for only a few $1,000s. Currently, the industry standard camera, the Red Epic Dragon, can cost upwards of $50,000, but the consumer Canon 70D costs only $1,200, cutting the price down to 5% of the studio cost. The New Wave call themselves the auteurs, or a filmmaker that has such creative control over a project that they become regarded as an author, using the camera as though it were a pen, hence the name given by Alexandre Astruc, La Camera Stylo, translated to camera pen. YouTube calls on the world to broadcast yourself with access to a pen tool. Why do I need to adhere to paperwork, studio politics, high risk, and more when I can just shoot it myself? Now, both the French New Wave and YouTube generation share a sense of immediacy. Even though the characters depicted are young, they already appear to be running out of time. They dedicate their lives to true living only to realize they can only run so far. This sense of shared immediacy is both shown in their shared aesthetics. Roll clip.
Tail sticks. Tail sticks. Marking.
No, I mean, I like them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was.
To divný.
No divný.
A já to nemám.
Au, nemáš.
A to je dobře nebo špatně?
Co?
No, že jsem jako ta kytara od toho Picassa.
No to je dobře.
You had already spoiled the Bachelor. No, I didn't. But that story was not related to what I was talking about in that you were working.
Baby,
I was talking about you working at home.
My response.
And my story was relating to that, not relating to you spoiling the Bachelor.
Now, what is captured is absolutely raw. These videos exhibit a need to be moving fast enough to avoid the young person's fear of not being heard.
All of that politicking, applying to film festivals, getting the right meeting with the right person, having an agent tell me this isn't good enough for the internet, this isn't good enough for... None of that existed. It was just me and an audience. Like, that was the beauty of the internet. That was the beauty of all of it.
The French New Wave and YouTubers aren't structured like film schools, nor isolated like Vimeo. YouTube is a community constantly breaking rules. And Astruc says that the New Wave has nothing to do with a school or even a movement. Perhaps it can be simply called a tendency, a new awareness. These were a band of filmmakers that stood up for each other, who collaborated on each other's work. For instance, Godard and Rivière's Paris Belongs to Us. Likewise, the collaboration in basically every single YouTube vlog. They were all unified by the same creed, fueled by the lack of reality in pulp culture or the news. Above all, both are honest.
Just destroying me. It's been a hard 2 years. It's been an immensely hard 5 months. It is this week. It's gotten to the point that I'm having panic attacks and I can't sleep, and
Where there is youth, innovation, and truth, there is the future. But a movement cannot begin until it has a voice.
Allow me to introduce the rest of us. How did you go from being my assistant to a famous big-time movie producer?
Just by never taking no for an answer and following, believing I could do anything, which I learned in the Neistat studio.
All right.
Seriously, this guy would just, over and over again, I'd never seen anything like it. He would just say, "You're smart, figure it out. You're smart, figure it out."
Now that was Oscar Boyson, producer of Good Times, recently accepted into the Cannes Film Festival. And that, of course, sitting next to him, was Casey Neistat. I'm not saying Casey Neistat will be the next Jean-Luc Godard. He is similar to Amadeus Engel, the director of the 1953 classic Little Fugitive that inspired so many of the French New Wave directors. The inspiration of the inspiration of the inspiration. What is most important to note is Casey's passion for film.
Rushmore is one of my favorite movies. And there's a scene in Rushmore when Herman Bloom says to Max Fisher, says, "Max, what's the secret?"
What's the secret, Max?
The secret?
Yeah, well, you seem to have it pretty figured out.
Secret, I don't know. I think you just gotta find something you love to do and then do it for the rest of your life. For me, it's going to Rushmore.
YouTube's my Rushmore.
In his office, he has a computer screen constantly playing Godfather Part 1 and 2 for what he says is a constant inspiration. Maybe YouTube needs a French name or more awards. Maybe there needs to be another war or a catastrophe to bring the isolated teenager out of his or her room. To give some focus to this vague mission statement of constant adventure. YouTubers are well known for being constantly positive, but there needs to be some tragedy. Because despite what the Chainsmokers tell you, we are getting older. While many see the tides crashing off in the ocean, I see a new wave approaching. And I hope you do too.
Now you see right here. See, I'm the novice when it comes to this stuff. Bruce, he's Mr. Driving around with cameras attached to his car.
What's going to happen, though, and you should be the first guy to do this. Someday in the next 5 years, someone's going to take one of these and make a feature film.
Oh, I know.
Almost did it with Bob Roberts.
Oh, yeah, I know. I agree with you.
Some kid, some 17-year-old kid's going to make this killer, drop-dead, poorly lit video movie that is going to be the hippest fucking thing, and then there's going to be 100 of them after that.
Oh, I agree with you.
They're going to cost about $60,000.